Good evening and welcome back to Tango Angeles. I am Ronaldo. We are live this evening. It's February 4th, and we are broadcasting from the historic Sunset Gower Studios in Hollywood, California. Tango Angeles is going into its second year, and as we mentioned last year, we're going to be a little more interactive this year. You know, Tango is like a secret society, and there are many such societies around the world, and we want to visit them all. At least we're going to try. And so that's what we're going to do, at least virtually. And we decided to call this series Destination Tango. And for our first destination, we have chosen Portland, Oregon. I believe the timing is perfect, as Valentine's Day is coming up real soon, and Portland's famous Valentango is coming up in a couple of weeks as well, and that is February 18th through the 23rd. We're very excited to have the founding members of the tango community in Portland, the movers and the shakers. They're going to be on our show this evening. Clay Nelson, Alex Krebs, Robert Hawk, and Paulie McBride. Before we begin our interview with Paulie, she's going to be Skyping in with us from Portland. Let's take a break with Armando Cupo in the voice of Alberto Moran in a track called Más Solo Que Nunca, More Alone Than Ever. And take a listen, and we'll be back with Paulie McBride. Stay tuned.
Separamos un día por un enojo cualquiera y hoy se muere el alma mía porque en vez de la alegría el dolor me desespera. Es necesario que vuelvas con tu querer y de pensar lo que hiciste, mi amor. Está muy triste, no sabe lo que hacer. Tesoro mío, cuánto sufro por tu ausencia, te extraño mucho. ¿Para qué voy a negarlo? Tesoro mío, comprende un poquito, le hacen falta a mis oídos tu dulce voz. Volve a mi lado, necesito mirarme en esos ojos que te ha regalado Dios. Ni lo que digo, mi voluntad se ha deshecho. Me alejé del buen amigo, ando solo sin abrigo y no sé qué hay en mi pecho. ¿Para qué te di mi nombre? Y fui detrás de tu amor, para que nadie se asombre que está penando un hombre que al cielo te llevó. Tesoro mío, cuánto sufro por tu ausencia, te extraño mucho. ¿Para qué voy a negarlo? Tesoro mío, comprende un poquito, le hacen falta a mis oídos tu dulce voz. Volve a mi lado, que necesito mirarme en esos ojos te ha regalado Dios.
Welcome back to Tango Angeles. Paulie McBride is one of the founding fathers, nurturing mother of the Portland Tango community, and we're very excited to have her on our show tonight. She's also written a book called Tango and Life, and we're going to be sharing some of those stories this evening. They're quite universal. And let's welcome Paulie to our show this evening. So, Paulie McBride, welcome to Tango Angeles. It's really great to have you here with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
And I have recently heard that Portland is where young people go to retire. And when I first read this, actually a good friend of ours here in Los Angeles sent me an email shortly before the show, and I thought I'd throw this question at you. What do you think?
I think that's pretty accurate, and for at least several. And we do have people that come to Portland of all ages, all walks of life. And when they come to Molungus and we see somebody new and I'm talking to them and saying, oh, new to Portland, job, family, business, and they'll say, well, it was the tango scene. We've heard so much about it. We've been here to your festivals. We've come to Molungus. We like what we see, and there's just so much of it, and it's good quality, so here we are. And that's happened more times than I can count, and with all ages and all locations that they've moved from Florida, California, and so on. So, yeah, that's a pretty accurate statement.
Of course, when I talk about the book that you wrote, Tango and Life, there's a few stories that intrigue me. But before, briefly share with us, Paulie, what brought you into tango and what got you hooked into it?
Well, it was a transition from folk dancing, which I'd been involved in extensively, and went to a workshop in Seattle in March of 1991, and saw a sign on the door that said Argentine Tango Workshop, 1 o'clock. I had no idea what it was, and decided to find out. Sonny Newman and Patty Leverett were teaching a lesson. And before they started, they did a little demo of what this dance, whatever it was. And it blew me away. I was totally smitten and said, I don't care what it takes. That's what I want. And I will spend the rest of my life getting it, and have. So from then on, and then there wasn't any tango in Portland, of course. So I spent the next couple of years doing workshops in Seattle, and going to Stanford Tango Week and so forth. And the following year, in 92, I met Clay Nelson at a workshop in Corvallis, and he had not seen it or dealt with it or met it, and he fell in love with it, and he had a studio. So after a year or so of study, different workshops, he opened his studio starting with tango classes, and they gradually grew and started to develop a community. And after a couple of years, he started inviting people from the Bay Area and Seattle and so forth to come in and teach. And then in 96, he started the Valentango, which is our 18th year, and Tango Fest. And those just exploded and brought people in from everywhere and teachers from everywhere. And so it just grew exponentially in a relatively short period of time, but we knew the dance would speak for itself once people saw it, tried it, and really understood what it could do for their dance life and other parts of their life. And it took off, and here we are.
Isn't that fascinating that Sonny Newman and Patty Leverett, that the ones that got you started on the road to becoming credited with being the godmother of tango in Portland.
Yeah.
How wonderful is that? You know, when I was living in Seattle, that was my first, Sonny Newman is where I first started. Also, a friend of mine at the time said, I saw an advertisement for tango classes. You want to check it out? And I went there a couple times. In fact, he made fun of me one time because I used to wear boots to class all the time. He asked, and he said, are you planning on dancing in those things all the time, or what's the story? Right in front of the class, I was like beat.
I can hear him saying that. What year was that?
I'd say it's going back probably about 8, maybe 9 years back.
Uh-huh.
And because I lived on the other side, on the Kirkland Bellevue side, it got to be a little bit of a drive to go to their classes, and I learned about where Patty was teaching, and that's how I got hooked up with Patty. So she was actually my second one. But that's interesting that we both had kind of the same trajectory.
World.
No kidding.
Small tango world.
Let's talk about your book, Tango and Life. There's a couple of stories there. Let's start with Tango and Torture.
Yeah.
This is really, it's funny, but not really, because I've had a situation like this before. I've experienced very similar to this. But you talk about tango prenups.
Yes.
Why don't you expand on that a little bit?
Well, it seems like tango becomes such an integral part of a relationship that when a couple who has either started in tango together or enjoyed tango together, or it's become part of their normal everyday life, then when they split, what happens to the tango? It's like a child or a possession or a treasured memory that neither one wants to let go of. So there needs to be probably some kind of negotiation of who goes to what milonga and who goes to what festivals, and because when couples that have split, typically what I've seen, what I've experienced, go to a milonga, they watch eagle eye who dances, who the other one's dancing with, who the ex comes, leaves with, all of those things. It's just, it just runs the ringer with your emotions, and there's so much more to it than just giving up a dance. It's or being separated, or having that dance just have been such a part of your life, and now a wonderful part of your life, and then now it becomes a contentious part of your life over who owns it, and so however couples work through to manage that and to come to some kind of peaceful or acceptable resolution, that can take some doing. And I've seen it, go both ways. Some couples walk away from each other and are okay dancing with each other at tango, and other couples can't even be in the same room together. So it's all over the map, just kind of like we are. So
you actually had a personal experience with a tango breakup. Do you mind sharing that with us? I think the piece was called, I don't know what to call this.
Well, I don't know what to call it. I didn't know what to call it. I couldn't think of a name. So when my partner of 7 years and I split up, he drove to Seattle every week, he said, because we got back together after a 6-month split, and it didn't last all that long, but nevertheless. So during that 6 months, he was going to Seattle every weekend for lessons, milongas, and so forth with the women up there who were, he said, best tangueras and beautiful homes, great ballrooms, all of those things. And when we got back together and we went, I was looking forward to going dancing with him for the first time. And when we went out to the first milonga, and after about 2 dances, he said, well, and in the meantime, in that 6 months, I got to back up for a second. In that 6 months, I was home, couldn't stand to go to milongas, couldn't hear the music. He was not at all interested in going to something he was going to show up at. And so I was in misery. I was just, oh my gosh, I've lost tango as well as losing him. And it's even worse than losing him because I wanted to lose him. But now, I don't want to lose tango. And so finally, when we got back together for a while, and we had danced a couple of times the first milonga, he said, wow, you dance just as well as the women in Seattle. Who have you been taking lessons with? I was speechless. I had no idea how to answer that. It's like, well, duh. But anyways, so that was my experience with that. And then when we did split up, it was a year before I could go to a milonga with him there. It was that hard. And people would say, oh, you shouldn't let it bother you. Well, excuse me, but if you haven't been in that position, it's very hard to say, oh, you shouldn't let it bother you, or it's just a dance. No, it isn't just a dance. So it takes time to get beyond that connection. I went to other dances, did other things. It's not the same as tango. That, tango is such a contact sport. physical, emotional, mental, all levels, when you give that much of yourself and the dance gives it back to you, there's a deep, deep connection there that isn't there with other dances. I've done lots of other dances, and they're fun. I like them. They're wonderful, but they're not tango. So,
which could be an interesting discussion all by itself. What is that we share these intimate moments with other people that sometimes we don't even share with our significant others?
Yeah.
But that might be digressing a little bit. But I was gonna say your ex-partner probably didn't know how to bring out the best in you before he started dancing in Seattle. I don't know. That's what comes to mind.
That's true. And he had definitely improved. I mean, yes, thank goodness, like I said in the story, that, that he had learned. He had picked up some skills, and he was definitely better. But he's not the only one I've seen that happen with lots of other men who thought some women were not as good at dancers as the people that they started with, because the follower was, maybe doing something that he wasn't expecting, but then later they would go, gosh, so-and-so is such a really good dancer, and not realizing that she probably was the whole time, but he wasn't prepared for it. He didn't know how to converse with her, exactly what you're saying, that you have to be ready in that conversation to both give and receive on the same level, or in order to fully appreciate it. Otherwise, it's kind of one-sided. So, or lopsided. And so, yeah, I agree with that, what you said.
I really like your stories, and again, especially these three, because to me, the common theme is that they're universal themes. They're themes that can apply to just about any tanguero anywhere in the world. Any dancer at one time or another is going to experience these things. Another one I wanted to talk about is the one about letting your partner dance with others. In Buenos Aires, when a woman is seated with a man, this is pretty typical, not always, of course. She is considered, quote unquote, taken, and usually not asked to dance by others. So that can be tricky too, with the jealousies and egos that get into the way. So how do we navigate these treacherous waters?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it depends, in my opinion and experience, how the relationship goes off the floor is how it's going to unfold on the floor. So when a couple is trusting, honest, compassionate, and generous with each other, then they would want each other to have a pleasurable dancing. If that's hard for them to see their partner having maybe even more pleasure dancing with someone more experienced, or how they connect better or whatever on the floor than, say, with the life partner, that can be hard. And that can be hard on the ego, and, just set up all kinds of negative feelings and repercussions. So that's part of the tango game. It more so, I believe, I'm sure of it, than any other dance, because we give more in tango. It's more personal. It's more physically connected and emotionally connected. And you're on the same wavelength when a woman is in the arms of someone who's feeling the music and allowing her to just relax and enjoy the music and the dance. That can be very mesmerizing, and she may not even want to report all of that when she's talking to her life partner again, because it may not be the same, with him may not be the same, and vice versa. Men can, have the same experience with some women, not their own life partner, can maybe, send them to some special place on the dance floor, and may not be something that they want to share. So it's a risk, but it's also, if both partners, I believe, understand that is the potential of tango, because that is what tango is about. It's about pleasing each other and making a very nice experience for, incorporating the music and the ambiance and all of that. So this is part of the game. It goes with the territory. And if you're going to dance tango, this is a possibility. And in a good relationship, that can work very well. In a relationship that has any kinds of cracks in the foundation, probably not going to work so well.
Mm-hmm. In my case, my partner and I usually sit together, and we allow each other to dance with others. The funny thing is that while she claims to enjoy watching me dancing with other women, when I watch her dancing and I see her eyes closed, I just go to the bar and have a drink. But I'm the best thing to do. Yeah. But even with open-minded partners, I know that she doesn't always like it when in between songs in a tanda, the woman lingers in the embrace, and these are long, lingering embraces. In between songs, it seems sometimes. So
right.
And so sometimes she gets, I think, a little later. But anyway.
But that's that's okay too, to a degree, because we want our partner to care. We want our partner to not be just apathetic about how we interact, and so forth, and whether people are attracted to us and we find give someone pleasure. We want them to be interested in that, but not controlling or possessive about it. Just understanding that when you're having a good conversation with someone, it's going to get, it can be a little more than was comfortable.
Keeping the energy clean.
So I think both partners need to be aware of how that's affecting their partner, and then make sure that they let them know there is nothing to be concerned about, whatever that takes, and, spending more time with them, and, so there's all kinds of ways of taking care of that, balancing that out.
Paulie, we're running out of time here, but I wanted to be sure if there's anybody in the community that we should mention, or that we have forgotten to mention, that have been as great part in building your tango community, such as you have.
Absolutely. The two names, one is Bill Alsup, and Bill created our website, portlandtango.com, in '96, and managed it, hosted it for several years. And he's also hosted our Sunday Practica. The Sunday Practica draws, for the past 15 years, has drawn an average 80 to 100 people a week.
Wow.
And it's been a tremendous resource for beginners and people of all skill levels, visitors, and so forth. Just a relaxed, comfortable, casual atmosphere. And that's been a huge positive factor in our community. And the other person is Megan Pingree. Megan is, when we first started having guest teachers come in to Portland, she housed them in her home and made sure they were comfortable, has done that ever since. She DJs. She has been on our festival organization committees. She's a teacher. She's hosted Friday Malunga for many, many years, and has contributed in many ways. So those two people, they really are part of our nucleus group, I would say, that kind of got the thing off the ground and then have kept it going. So yes, those two.
You're awesome, Paulie. I don't mind saying that, and I fully understand how and why the foundations were laid so long ago in Portland for this beautiful, peaceful coexistence between all the different genres and styles, and no infightings and politicking going on. And I fully understand that after speaking with you, and having a chance to speak with Clay a little bit before the show. And so you're a generous godmother of the tango.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And And Clay's motto is always, if it's good for tango, it's good for the community. And that's pretty much how he operated and set a standard of cooperation and collaboration and so forth. And it's worked. We're not perfect, but it's worked really well, and we've all tried to maintain that standard.
Yeah, that's a absolutely great standard to have. And thank you very much for being here with us on our show, Tango Angeles, our special Destination Tango edition, beginning with Portland. And I cannot wait to dance with you one of these days when I'm up in Portland.
That'd be awesome.
It'll be really great.
Very good.
And
thank you so much.
Thank you, Paulie. You're great. Thank you very much for being here with us.
It's been a pleasure and my honor.
Next up on our Destination Tango tour of Portland is Robert Hawk, milonguero and organizer for Monday Night Milonga. The name is Conga Club. He can't be here tonight with us live, so we're going to play a pre-recorded interview with him. Before we go into that interview, let's play one of Robert's dream tanda songs. This one is Lucio de Mare with the voice of Raúl Verón, and the title is Cómo se hace un tango, and that will be followed by Robert's interview. Stay tuned. I'm Ronaldo, and you are listening to Tango Angeles.
Si que usted quiere, vieja, que empiece a contarle yo cómo se hace un tango, no le haré el gusto si me deja. Vaya parando la oreja, que va a hablar el que la adora, hoy, mañana, toda hora. Porque pa' mí donde cuadre usted no es solo mi madre, sino mi novia, señora. ¿Cómo se hace un tango? Dijo, oiga mamá con dolor, mezclado con pena de amor, que es la que sienten los hijos, con el pensamiento fijo, es la que estoy contemplando, con el que vive esperando, a la que no llega nunca, y con esa noche trunca de los que van aflojando. Dolientes enojos de aquel que le falta un cobre, con el que piedad le sobre, pa' la pobre flor de fango, con eso así se hace un tango, con la emoción de los pobres.
Robert, welcome to Tango Angeles, and thank you for joining us here this evening. When did you first get introduced to the
quote-unquote milonguero style. That seems to be what you are well known for in your community.
Yeah, I met Susanna Miller in February of 1997, and I was working in the Bay Area on a job, and I was there from February till April, and I met her a couple of weeks after or just a week after I first got there. And I had been dancing tango then for a year and something. And, dancing in Portland, I felt like I knew something, so I was excited to dance in the Bay Area. And it didn't take but going out a couple times to realize I didn't know anything. And I was already interested in the milonguero style. I knew of it. A student of Susanna's, who has since passed away, he lived in Los Angeles, Alberto Toledano. His partner, Lorena Arbus, is still teaching, I believe. They had taught workshops here in Portland. And so I was interested, but I did all the bad posture things you see everybody do. And a friend had connected me up with Christopher Nasopoulos. So I think of all the people in the United States who are still teaching milonguero style, I think he's the person who's known Susanna the longest. I think he met her maybe in 95. He'd known her for a while. But anyway, so meeting her in 97, this was only her second tour to the United States. So I've kind of seen milonguero style develop in the United States pretty much as long as it's been around. People didn't generally know of that particular way of dancing tango at that time. But when I felt what it could feel like, that's all I really wanted to do. And so that's all I did afterwards.
Yeah, it's interesting. Seems that I have followed the same trajectory as you. I had been dancing in Seattle for about a year or so when I first met Susanna Miller, and she set me on the right track as far as that style goes with the walking. She told me, she saw what I was doing and pretty much told me to throw it all in the garbage. And she said, don't take a lesson from anybody else here again, and this is what you need to do, at least for the next year, she said. But I think she was being kind, because it seems like it's been, 7 years or so since, and I'm still learning how to walk.
Yeah, you'll be learning to walk for the rest of your tango life. It's amazing, And I remember it would have been the summer of 1997 when I believe that was the year Nora Denzelbacher took over the tango weekend that Stanford had been doing, or the tango week. And one of the guest instructors there was Pupi Costello. And in one of the discussion sessions, someone had asked him the question, what did he think North American dancers needed to be working on? And his answer was interesting, because I often think back to it. He said, steps are actually pretty easy to learn. And he said, all of you can do lots of steps, so clearly the steps are easy to learn. He said, the thing that's most difficult to learn is the walking. And he said, none of you know how to walk very well. So he said, that's what you should work on. And that always stuck in my mind afterwards. Even now I appreciate more and more what he meant, because it just goes on and on. That's what you work on, for the rest of your life.
And when you discovered this close embrace dance, sustained close embrace that we call milonguero style, was it well received in Portland? Did you get a lot of pushback, any resistance? What was it like to bring this to the Portland market?
Well, to Clay's credit, I've seen communities where there would have been a lot of pushback, because the people who were teaching classes would have said, "Oh, that's not real, and you can't do that in my studio," and this sort of thing. And Clay was aware that this was certainly the way that people danced in Buenos Aires. And 2 weeks after I was back from the job, I was running a practice in his studio for his students, and he never tried to control what I would teach these people to do. And so, that was really an unusual openness with the scene and with the studio. But in talking with other people, I felt that at the time that a close embrace form would be a better way for people maybe to start dancing tango, only because it really teaches you more quickly about balance and axis and these things. Because there's a little less room for error in it. And that, I no, you can't make women dance close embrace with men they don't know in classes. And so I sort of just had to let that go for a little while. At first, the men in the Portland scene would say to me, gosh, I don't think I'd be interested in doing that because you don't seem to be doing very much. And I think I'd get bored because I like the steps that I know. And so it was interesting that about a year later, or even within a year, the story changed quite a bit because everybody knew that I was going to dance that way. So the women knew if they were dancing with me, that was what I wanted to dance. And after there was a little bit of experience with it, the same men were coming back to me a year later and they're saying, it doesn't look like you do anything, but the women really like it. Can you teach us what you're doing? And that's actually how I started actually getting into teaching classes because people were asking me about it. And I just thought it was interesting that at first, there was this thought that, well, you can't make women dance close embrace with men they don't know. That's going to cause troubles. And yet it was that women enjoyed dancing. And that sort of got everybody else interested in it, got the men interested in it.
So one might say that women led men to the close embrace in Portland.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think it's actually been that way in most places because, I think it's easier for men to get focused on learning lots of steps and sort of forgetting that sometimes it seems like forgetting a little bit that they're dancing with a fellow human being. That you often see what men dancing as though the woman they're dancing with is just a tool for them to do steps with. And I think women found the close embrace sort of freeing from that and offering maybe a little bit different experience, which they liked. So I think it was a big help. It was interesting to me that it was really, I think, women in many communities who, after having experienced it, wanted to try and bring it to their community.
So when you first started teaching in Portland, were you advertising it as such?
Well, yeah, and, I actually, when I first got my classes going, I had a real sort of a piece of luck. There was a guy that started a dance hall called the Viscount Ballroom, and the name lives on in today in the Viscount Dance Studios, which were started later in the same building. But he first had Alex teach the class to begin with and DJ, and Alex turned it over to me. I believe this would have been in December of 2000, because Alex was traveling in Europe, and he wanted to be free to travel, and he didn't want to be tied down by a regular milonga. And so I didn't require people to dance in close embrace in the class, in the pre-milonga class, but I demonstrated everything in that. And this place was a big place. That guy did quite a bit of advertising for the business. And so we went from 40 regular dances in that time to 120 every Monday. And most of those people started at that Monday milonga, and they saw the classes taught in this close embrace. And so people saw it as a normal way to dance tango from the beginning. And then Clay started to promote my classes because I taught my first group classes at his studio. And so he promoted those classes, and they got pretty big. I mean, I had classes where there were between 40 and 60 people.
That's amazing for something relatively new.
It's all these luck factors that made it work. I've always felt that I owed Clay a debt, that he was open to it and made a space for it in the studio, even though it wasn't exactly what he was teaching or what he was dancing at the time. But it was interesting. When our tango festivals started to get big, and our October festival was a fairly early festival in the United States. There weren't a lot of festivals going on at the time that got going. So I would say by 2001, those festivals were pretty big. People were noticing and commenting about the amount of close embrace we did. In fact, I remember Clay and I having a laugh about this. Someone accused him of a close embrace conspiracy or something, claimed about all the close embrace dancing that we were doing here. Because it wasn't, it really wasn't widely known, even at that time, across the United States. So people started coming here, and it was almost as though someone was accusing him of forcing people to dance close embrace here in Portland. Nothing of the sort,
Portland tango dancing has evolved quite a bit in several different directions. In Portland, it seems like all these different styles coexist rather well. Tell us your impression about that.
The big thing that we've been able to do is just maintain generally good relations between the various people who are teaching. So what's evolved here is it's a very market-driven community. That is, people freely take classes with different teachers and move around, and they're able to find what they like to dance, which I think is a very healthy thing for our community. People aren't really segregated by the way they're dancing. They don't have to go to specific milongas. They're not going to be shunned if they go one place and dance in a certain way. And we've been able to keep that sort of spirit alive in this town. And I think it's contributed to our tango scene being a very good.
I think Portland is an example of coexistence in the tango. I think a lot of credit should be given to all those people who started. Clay, Nelson, Alex, yourself, Paulie, they led the way and created the atmosphere for the diversity to exist while respecting other people. The name of your milonga is you're at the Conga Club. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And that's on Monday nights.
Yes.
I read somewhere that you are a sought-after DJ in many, many communities.
Yeah, I don't work out of town as much now. This is another thing that's grown up. I think it's fair to say, if not the first, one of the very first people in Portland to want to study music enough to actually DJ. Back when I first started dancing tango, the music we could easily get our hands on would be things like the Forever Tango soundtrack, which is not easy dancing, even if you're experienced dancing. You can imagine what that led us to do. And for me, I would credit Susanna Miller with teaching me what kind of music we probably ought to be dancing to, but more importantly, she taught me what we actually danced to in the music. It was that knowledge that really helped me find what music to play.
What makes your music unique, or the way you arrange your tandas?
But I'd have to say, being a DJ on Monday Night Milonga, I would not say I would say I'm actually kind of a conservative DJ, and that's partly because if people have a chance to sit down too long on a Monday night, they're going to remember that they have to go to work the next day. And so if you want to have a good crowd still in a room at 11 o'clock, you've got to really be doing a job. You don't dare have two tangas in a row that the majority of people don't like, or you're going to have an empty room.
All the 20 years you've been in dancing tango, any particular memorable story, anecdote that stands out that you can share with us?
Well, there was my first trip to Buenos Aires when I learned what a good connection really can feel like. There was a milonga called Paladita. They haven't danced in that space for a really long time, but anybody who went to that place remembers it. In fact, there's a dance studio there was, it may still be, I hope it's still there, dance studio in Dallas, Texas, that was named Salon Paladita after that place. And I was in there one afternoon, and I saw this woman come in the door, and for some reason, something inside me said, I absolutely must dance with her. And it was funny, because I just could not keep from looking at her. And she put her shoes on, and she didn't look back at me or nothing, But at the beginning of the next tanda, she actually danced with me, which was a bit of a surprise to me. I put my arms around her, and I felt like I was hooked up to electricity. I felt like I lifted out of my body, and I danced like I had never, ever danced the rest of the evening, that's all I could think about. It was the most incredible experience. I had always heard people say, how strong the dance could feel. And I thought I knew how strong the dance could feel at that point. And I was completely bowled over by that experience. And that, for me still, I think that's one of the most memorable experiences in my whole tango life.
And as tango dancers, that's the feeling that we're always chasing, isn't it?
Yeah, to get back to that moment again. And,
to that space and
as
time.
you go on, you find that you never recreate any one moment completely. But that first time, there's nothing like that. And as you dance longer, it's easier to get that sort of a feeling. But it's still a funny, ephemeral thing. I mean, there's nights where, try as you might, it won't happen. And there's other nights where, without trying at all, out of the blue, you dance with somebody and there it is, that feeling. And you thought you were going to have kind of a slow night, and you're just electrified for the rest of the evening. It's great. You can't plan a night of tango. You just have to go and do it and see what happens.
On that note, that's what we're going to do, is keep doing it. Robert, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you.
Oigo tu voz, I hear your voice, recorded in 1943 by Robert Hawk's Dream Team, Ricardo Tanturi and Enrique Campos. Up next on our Destination Tango Portland, Oregon tour is Alex Krebs, bandoneonista, composer, bandleader, teacher, and a major in physics, and according to Paulie McBride, an all-around genius. And before we talk to Alex, let's introduce one of his songs. This is called Romance de Barrio. This is performed by the Alex Krebs Tango Sextet from the album Stamtandas, recorded in 2011. And we'll follow that up with a pre-recorded interview with Alex. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Came up as being one of the most visible and well-known in the Portland Tango community. So thank you again for being here with us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good to be here.
Tell us about your background, Alex. Are you a native Portlandian?
I'm not. I was born and raised in the South Bay area in Cupertino, and then I went to high school in the mountains near Sonora, kind of Yosemite area. I was heavy into snowboarding. I was teaching snowboarding through high school, and then for college I wanted to stay on the West Coast, so I applied to Stanford and UC Berkeley and UC Santa Cruz and Reed College, and went to visit all of them, and Reed was the obvious choice for me, and so I went up here and visited the college, and at that time I didn't really get Portland as a city, and this was in '95, but I love Reed College, and I thought, well, I'll graduate Reed and then move off somewhere, and I wasn't dancing tango yet.
Was the Reed College, did you have a major at the time? Were you thinking about music at the time?
Yeah, I ended up double majoring in physics and music. Yeah, I graduated in '99. I ended up coming across tango in '96, and then was teaching by the time I graduated, and then plans for graduate school kept getting further and further out because tango sort of consumed everything, as it does.
So when you were first being introduced into tango, what was going on in the Portland tango scene, if you will, when you first got started? And with respect to teachers and milongas and practicas, I mean, what was it that called you to that?
Well, my first exposure to tango was hearing Gardel on the radio on NPR. I was cooking. I remember I heard it. It was just guitar and voice, and I thought, man, that sounds fabulous. What is that? Turned it up, and I bought a cassette tape of Gardel, and I thought that was the extent of Argentine tango. You know, I didn't know there was a dance related to it or anything. All I knew was Gardel. So listened to that for, about a year, and then did a ballroom dance class at Reed College and thought ballroom tango was the only tango there was, and then went to the Bay Area and called up Gary Weinberg, actually, and Nirmala. They were teaching a class at the Germania Hall in San Jose, and he said, well, this is Argentine tango, you'll have to start all over. I said, I'm fine with that, and did that lesson, never did ballroom again. So I did 3 months of tango in the Bay Area with Gary and Nirmala, and went to some of the milongas of Nora Dinzelbacher and the Verdi Club and all those, and Broadway on Sunday nights, all these old milongas. And then after 3 months, I came to Portland. I forget how I searched it out, but there was one milonga a week. At that time, this was 1996, I would say 12 to 15 dancers at most. I believe Clay was the only person teaching, and he was also relatively new to tango at the time. He had seen it, a couple of years, but he had a studio and was teaching ballroom, and he was kind of learning it as he was teaching it, but he was the only one teaching it at the time. And as I recall, aside from Clay's group classes, that one milonga at Powell Street Depot, I believe it was on Sunday nights, that was the first milonga that I had been exposed to. Now, I think the scene was already here for a year or two before I came in, but, a scene with, 10 people or so, very few. Friendly bunch, and, I danced around, and they were kind of curious who I was, this kid who just kind of came in, and, there weren't any young people at the time. I was 18, I believe, or 19, and everyone else was, 40 and above. But it was great. It didn't matter. It was lovely time.
Your music background, what got you interested in the bandoneon?
I've been a musician by education more than anything in my life. I started violin at 3 and then moved to saxophone, and played saxophone jazz for all through high school and college as well. And then thought about playing the bandoneon, but I thought, I don't have time. It's too difficult of an instrument. I can't get one. And then I was DJing a milonga, the all-night milonga at the Beat in Berkeley, and one of the dancers there just literally handed me her bandoneon and said, do you want this? And I said, well, what do you mean? She said, well, I don't have time. My hands are too small. If you play this, then you can sort of have it on permanent loan. And if you don't, or get a new bandoneon, give it to someone else with the same idea, like have this be a circulating bandoneon for people that are interested in learning to play. And sort of became addicted to just playing it, and ended up playing it for a couple hours a day for at least the first year. And then I realized I could actually play a tango, and then got together with a friend, and we would just jam, and then I formed a band, and then I was self-taught, and then after 3 months, I did a show at the Benaroya Theater in Seattle, and Raul Juarena from New York was playing with Pablo Aslan in the show, and I was dancing in it, and I said, hey, can you give me a private lesson? And so I went to his hotel room, got an hour private lesson. He taught me how to do the marcado well and gave me some exercises. Then I had a lesson. I was teaching in New York once, and had a lesson with Hector Del Curto, who played with Pugliesi's orchestra for several years. And then I had one other when I was teaching in Germany. I had my bandoneon. This guy, Fernando Rezk, R-E-Z-K, from a group called Musa Mistonga, was traveling around from Buenos Aires, got a lesson with him. So 3 private lessons, and the rest just self-taught, and by no means even close to mastering the instrument. But, I put in a lot of hours, especially those first 2 or 3 years, enough to just be able to form ensembles and have fun with it.
I guess it's like tango, it just takes a lot to learn it, and it's an ongoing, lifelong journey, I guess,
Yeah, I was going to say it's analogous to learning the dance, It's not like you just learn 2 basic patterns and then you're good to go. It's you constantly learn, and the entrance fee is high. You have to memorize where the keys are, and you're trying to find logic when there is no seeming logic, and then after a while you just do it enough, and you love it enough, and you kind of get it, and then you just keep getting better. So yeah, it's years of mastery and practice. And I mean, during the golden age, those guys were practicing hours every day and getting paid really well, and the competition was fierce. So that scenario, I mean, I wish it would happen again, but it's difficult to just the financial you can't put together a band and rehearse 8 hours a day and expect to make a living and pay the whole band. Really, all tango musicians that play at milongas these days are really doing it more for a labor of love. And even then, the time is limited and the resources are limited. It's hard to find good instruments. It's hard to find teachers. Maybe we'll have our next golden age at some point.
So you still have direct your own orchestra, or?
Yeah, I've had a lot of different iterations. Basically, I started off with a group that we named Conjunto Berretin, which was, we just played a la parrilla. So we were playing off lead sheets in a sort of improvised manner. It was a quartet, piano, bass, bandoneon, and violin. Then I got tired of doing a la parrilla and I expanded to a sextet. And I started doing arrangements. I also put together an orquesta tipica, I think about 9 years ago, and I remember I took 2 months off and did 20 arrangements for full 10-piece orchestra, just so I would have that, because I had never seen that happen in the States before, and Clay was generous enough to fund that at his festival. I've played, this festival's for,
every
I want to say 12 years, 13 years, and we'll be at Valentango. So then I moved from arrangements to thinking, it'd be nice to do original compositions, because, you don't really hear about new tango compositions being composed these days, especially for dancing, and the focus has always been on dancing. So we did we did one album with all original tangos, milongas, and valses, and also 2 original chacareras.
What's the title of that album?
Looking Ahead on the Shoulders of the Past, or the White Album. It's all original compositions, and we also collaborated with Maria Volonté. She wrote the lyrics to one of the tangos and one of the chacareras, and she sings on it, several of them. The other album, Stump Tandas, is all covers, so that's us just doing basically transcriptions of stuff from the Golden Age. 2 albums by Conjunto Berretin, 1 electronic tango album, which was mostly an experiment, and then 1 New York tango jam session, which I flew out to New York and recorded an a la parrilla album with some fabulous musicians out there. And then the last one we put out on vinyl is called, the name of the group is What the Tango, Alt Mission. And there was to try to explore, if tango had a different trajectory, contemporary trajectory, that was maybe fused with elements of rock and jazz and things like that, what would it sound like? So those are all original compositions meant for dancing that are not structurally traditional Argentine tangos, but are meant to be danced to. So all the albums been sort of concept albums, but also with the intent always with the dancers in mind. It's sort of a history of the different, for me, like the different pathways that modern tango music could go, I guess, which I'm always very curious about. 50 years from now, are we still going to be dancing to music from the Golden Age, which I love more than anything? But tango, I think, is the only social dance where if you go to a social dance, sort of very few or almost no modern tango recordings are played ever. And if they are, they're played at alternative milongas instead of traditional milongas, which is sort of, if you go salsa dancing or swing dancing, they play modern bands. But with tango, it's not really the case. So I don't know if it's just people feel like you can't compete with the orchestras from the Golden Age, which, I agree, those are the best that probably will ever be. But I think there's room for something to happen in the future. I just don't know exactly what that might be. I'd be interested someday when original Argentine tangos are written and composed for dancing with English lyrics. I think we have to, at some point, change the mentality of being think outside of being historians, It's like I said, I love Golden Age tango music more than anything to dance to. However, I don't want to be a museum curator. I don't want to teach the steps from the 40s. I don't only want to do that forever. I want to see where else, how do we make this more a living, evolving thing? How do we, if it's ever has a chance to be popularized again, modern day people need to resonate with the lyrics, with the sound of the music in order for it to become popular again, because it will never be popular in the state it's in now. People are not going to listen to 1940s tangos and it's going to explode like wildfire, millions of people. It's always going to be an underground secret thing, and maybe that is its future. But it would be nice to see something happen
that captures the popular imagination without
watering it down or making it cheesy. It's very easy to do something like that. So it has to be done in a tasteful,
without
correct
changing
way,
it so much that it becomes unrecognizable. Yes.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, that was Que vuelva la lluvia, Let the Rain Return. That was by, again, Alex Krebs from the album What the Tango, Alt Mission, with the beautiful, hypnotic, and sensual voice of Megan Yvonne. So let's listen to the second part. By the way, that was recorded in 2013. We'll go into the second part of our interview with Alex. I asked him how he felt about generally the Portland tango community, and here's what he had to say.
I love it here. I think, the way of dancing, the DJing, the venues, the social atmosphere, for me, it's some of the best. I travel a lot to teach, and I go to festivals, and I come home, and I'm not bummed to come home and dance in my local scene. I love it here. I love the people. I love the dancing. Yeah, I think it's great. The demographics, it's really a diverse group of people in terms of professions and ages and, everything, styles. It's wonderful.
A lot of different styles, and everyone seems to get along very well in the community there, which is great. Or am I wrong about that?
No, it's always functioned, I think, really healthy in terms of the dynamics between teachers, between organizers. The students see the teachers and organizers cooperating. So there are no milongas in Portland where it's just the students of so-and-so or this or that. And if I'm on vacation, I send my students to other teachers. I encourage them to study with other people, and the other teachers do the same. I think all the teachers are focused on good quality social dancing here, which is really nice. There's no one just teaching back staccatos the first day of class. And so, the general focus, I think, is amongst the teachers is trying to get students to become musical, navigate well, be respectful to other people, the basic qualities, I think, of a good social dancer. So as a result, the intermediate level is, I think, very high here. Which is what makes the community wonderful to dance in.
You have the name Berretin.
When I bought my studio, I was thinking, the names of clubs and milongas in Buenos Aires, sometimes they name them after tango. So I was going through a list of tango titles and seeing if anything resonated. And then the word Berretin, I thought, it's nice because it's lunfardo. Doesn't belong to, regular Spanish, and it has several different meanings. One of them being sort of the longing or desire, the sort of tango feeling, right? That there's no real English word for it. Maybe nostalgia or longing.
Right, and I saw that, and then all of a sudden it hit me that, you wear a beret. That's like your look. It's like your signature, right? And I thought, maybe it has something to do with beret. I don't know. It's a little play on words.
But afterwards, I realized, that was part of it. It was more to, so there's the tango Berretin that was composed Pedro Lawrence, is the name of a tango, and it was, it's the word that describes the sort of tango feeling, when you really have that moment where the music just moves you and you have that tango special feeling that's so hard to describe. And I thought Berretin is probably maybe if a word exists, that's maybe the closest word to that experience. And I really wanted my dancing and teaching in the studio to be sort of a reflection of that thing that's so unique in Teen Tango. That was kind of the main motivating factor of it. What makes Portland unique? Do you have, anything there that's different? And I said, we have Momo Smith, who's a tango rapper, and as far as I know, he's the only one doing that in the world. And I think his genius lies in he's really capturing the modern tanguero's experience today. So he's rapping about things like switching lead and follow, or about the embrace, or about the ocho cortado in an airport, right? Which, in the 40s, not many people flew to tango festivals. And so his poetry is great, and he's a great rapper, and he's a great person, great dancer, a great teacher. That's super unique, and I keep, whenever I meet with him, I keep encouraging him to explore more of that. But he's really like giving specifics about, hey, what's it like to tango in 2015? A lot has changed since the 40s, and highlighting those changes and appreciating them. So I think what he's doing is fabulous. And also we have, I think, one of the U.S.'s only bandoneon repair persons. His name is Matthew Schwartzberg, and he's taken it upon himself in the last 6 years to research how to repair bandoneons. And so he gets sent bandoneons from all over the States, and he repairs them. And as far as I know, he's one of the only people that in the U.S. that does that. So that's pretty unique. And we also have the Reed College Tango Institute, which is, as far as I know, the only sort of week-long intensive training for people who want to learn to play tango music, with a faculty of some of the best musicians in the world, people like Ramiro Gallo, people from the Orquesta Escuela in Buenos Aires. So Pablo Aslan runs the bass part of it. Julian Hasse is the bandoneon player. Ramiro Gallo is the violinist. Also, like Reed College for Valentango, same weekend, they're bringing this group called Astillero, who, in my opinion, are on the cutting edge of tango music today. They are, in my opinion, the best. Not necessarily for dancing. They're close for dancing. But in terms of what they're doing musically and capturing modern angst of the porteños, it's really beautiful stuff and amazing and all original. So Reed College is playing a vital role in helping to make Portland even more outstanding, I think, than it originally is, because they have the institutional means to fund bringing in these really high-profile musicians and really focusing on the learning aspect. Musicians that go to this Tango Music Institute, it's been held 2 years now. It'll be held again, I think, the end of June this year. These are all, the people that go to it are all band leaders of tango bands across the U.S. So it's like, that is really a breeding ground, a petri dish for what's gonna happen, a decade from now. It's like people will look back, and that will play a super important role.
Also, Alex, don't forget, you guys have Voodoo Donuts too over there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, outside of the Portland scene, that's when stuff gets weirder, because I saw your little tag, keep Portland weird. And
that's your famous bumper sticker.
Yeah.
And my question is there anything weird about Portland tango?
I was thinking what makes it weird is that it's so normal and so good. I mean, gosh, I remember I traveled to one place, and man, they were playing these operatic versions of ballroom. I mean, it was the most surreal experience. It's not weird at all. I think the weird thing is that that the teachers don't fight here, and people get along and are friendly. That's what's unique about it. I actually saw some bumper stickers the other day. It said, "Make Portland normal." People going the other way. No, the city is...
That would be weird.
Yeah. The city is, I guess, weirder than the tango scene.
I love Portland. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Alex. It's been a great conversation to have with you, and to learn a little bit more, maybe a lot more, about who you are and your music and your contribution to this wonderful, wonderful community we call Tango.
Yeah, well, thanks.
And welcome back to Tango Angeles. That was Alex Krebs. And after speaking with these wonderful folks, I really get why the Portland tango community is so vibrant. Alex mentioned during the interview tango rapper Momo Smith, the only tango rap hip-hop singer-songwriter. He's very Portlandian, Momo, meaning experimental and boundary bending. So we're going to listen to one of his songs titled When You Lead Me, Jenna. The title alone, you can see how Momo thinks outside of the traditional tango box. I really like this song a lot, actually. So take a listen, and we'll be back.
Eyes are lit with fire. I see the light inside her. She's the lighter, everything that I admire. We dance to Pugliese. I let the mood caress me. You get me. Yes, I'd like another set, please. We hold a strong embrace. Nothing gets lost along the way. You shift my weight. You wait for me, and suddenly no roles exist. Lose the titles, just connect. The floor becomes an ocean, and we're drowning, but we share a breath. So let's step to celebrate what's left. Where we've been and where we'll get becomes irrelevant. So let's step to celebrate what's left. Where we've been and where we'll get becomes irrelevant. when you lead me, Jenna. You put your pumas on your feet like cleats, like we might find the center in me right there. It's not like a lead while you submit. Oh no, you're so active. You take the lead from me and then you give it back again. There are no accidents while practicing this detachment. The roles are switched so swift and then switch back again. I feel masculine and feminine, grasping for my pen, and then here I sit at 6 a.m. holding on to our heaven. Reliving every bit what happened over there. No, over there, I'll never get over it. So let's step to celebrate what's left. Where we've been and where we'll get becomes irrelevant. So let's step to celebrate what's left. Where we've been and where we'll get becomes irrelevant when you lead me, Jenna. When you lead me, Jenna. What bliss to coexist in the midst of happiness. I give my mind and heart to you, then everything makes sense when you lead me, Jenna. Can't anticipate the switch or else that puzzle piece won't fit. I've always searched for something more while I'm close to finding it when you lead me, Jenna. So let's step to celebrate what's left. Where we've been and where we'll get becomes irrelevant. So let's step to celebrate what's left. Where we've been and where we'll get becomes irrelevant when you lead me, Jenna. When you lead me, Jenna.
Welcome back to Tango Angeles. We are broadcasting live this evening from the Universal Broadcasting Network studios, located in the historic Sunset Gower Studios, and I'm Ronaldo. We've been traveling on the yellow brick road of down to Portland, Tango, and finally we get to meet the wizard himself, Clay Nelson. He is founder, one of the founders of Portland Tango, teacher, organizer, DJ. He has organized many events in North America. Valentango, which is coming up, as I mentioned before, February 18th through the 23rd. Burning Tango in McLeod. Tango Fest. It's another festival that Clay started and handed it over to the Portland community. Also, I didn't know this, but Clay started Tango Magic in Seattle, and that was handed over to Arturo, which is, I believe now it's gotten handed over to a couple other folks. DJ Anton Sukhanov is now organizing Tango Magic in Seattle. He also did Turkey Tango in Ashland, Oregon, and Tango Maya in Cancun, Mexico, just to name a few. Before we bring Clay on, let's listen to a song to introduce him with.
Yo no sé por qué razón.
1942, this was recorded by Enrique Rodriguez with the vocals of Armando Moreno. And stay tuned, and we'll be right back with Clay Nelson.
la que ayer acariciara mi sonía, hoy es todo mi pesar. Ya no sé reír, ya no sé soñar, ya no soy aquel sentimental. No lo ves, hastiado y triste como estoy, de vivir así por un amor. Yo no sé por qué razón, cada vez te quiero más. Yo no sé por qué razón, creo en vos y me engañas. Yo no sé por qué razón fatal encontré con este amor mi mal, y sin fe, sin religión, sin Dios, una sombra soy por vos.
And welcome back. I am Ronaldo, and the show is supposed to be about what makes Portland weird, and I think it should have been titled as what's makes our show tonight very weird is all these technical difficulties, and I'm just trying to keep myself from having a major meltdown here right in the studio as we play around with this. So, good evening, Clay. Welcome. This is Ronaldo from Tango Angeles. How are you this evening? Thank you for being here with us. It's an honor to finally meet the wizard behind all that magic many of us have experienced, literally. Because I remember my first experience when I learned how to dance tango. This is going back about 8 years or so years. This was Tango Magic in Seattle, and the big grand dance, the big dance on the Saturday night from the ballroom, the lights and the live music by Alex Krebs. It's something that I had never experienced before. It really was quite magical. And now we are here on live radio with the wizard himself. So welcome, Clay.
I appreciate you saying that, but I just have to make a comment after listening to the other interviews you had.
Sure.
It's kind of bringing me back, because as many people know, I don't live in Portland any longer. I live in Ashland, which is about 5 hours south. So I don't see these people on a regular basis, and it's just great to hear them. And I'm kind of impressed and intimidated by all of their abilities. Alex Krebs is amazing, and Robert and Paulie have added so much. So I'm kind of intimidated by all they've contributed and done.
Well, they're wonderful people, and like I mentioned before, it's no surprise that your community there has evolved so nicely, and it's such a pleasure to be there in that dancing community. I mean, look at you people, right? I mean, it's all of you just have the best intentions that you put forth, and there doesn't seem to be, I'm going to say this again, I've said it before, all this politicking that is common. Let's face it. People get involved in stuff, and there's infightings and things like that. But thank you for mentioning that. I had a chance to watch your Absolute Beginners video on the YouTube, and I was thinking, man, what was that made? The sweater that you wore. It's like, I hope you keep that for the museum or something. I don't know that.
I don't even remember was it that bad? I don't remember.
It was kind of an oversized looking sweater. I used to wear sweaters like that too, so I started to laugh to myself going, man, it was very cool to watch it though. Great beginner video. And anyway, you're quite enterprising as well. At the end of the video it says to get the other two parts, click here, and it's $4.98. Now I know how you keep yourself from going bankrupt doing festivals. But, all kidding aside, you've organized these events, and obviously you've been very successful at them. And if you can just share with us a little bit about how do you do that, because, we have a very good friend here in L.A. who's come up with 5 stages of tango. And it goes like this. one, you start tango, and two, after 2 lessons, you start to teach tango. And 3, after coming back from a trip to Buenos Aires, you start selling shoes. And number 4, you go from selling shoes to organize a festival, and that's where you go bankrupt. And and so it seems like you kind of stopped at the level 4 there, but I mean, you know, obviously you're very successful. So I'm going to let you talk and share with us what's the secret to your success there.
Well, in fact, I have heard a few people organize festivals, and it costs them dearly. So I think probably one of the things I do is I start small. Every festival I've started small. You know, I started those Tango Magic, and 2 in Portland, and 1 in Ashland, a couple in Mexico. And all of them, you know, I started very small in Portland and very modest. And in fact, the first few festivals that I did, I really didn't go out and hire really expensive teachers, but I brought teachers from actually kind of local in a way from Seattle, Bay Area, because they were kind of ahead of us in Portland. And then after I created the first festivals, I always try to just do the very best job I can, so it's a memorable event for people, and make them want to come back, and make it you know, have a lot of milongas and not too expensive. And I also have the feeling, you know, a lot of people who start festivals, they want to start with the star performers, and I've always wanted to start with the star teachers, because some performers, fantastic dancers, but not necessarily the best teachers. And so I've always tried to search out great teachers, and which usually are a little less costly. And then as the festivals have grown over time, they become more well-known, then I start attracting, you know, better teachers and dancers and better performers. And after a while, I start having those people coming to me asking to teach at my festival. So so I can keep the price reasonable for the attendees, and offer a lot. So I think that's kind of the key. I start small and just kind of gradually build up and learn as I go.
You've done a great job engineering this. So let's backtrack a little bit. You actually have an engineering background. And,
that's correct.
And at what point did you decide to switch gears from engineering to dancing?
When I was an undergraduate, I taught for Arthur Murray Dance Studio. That was at University of Illinois. And then after I graduated, I taught for 7 years at the University of Portland, and I kind of just gave up dancing in general. And then I got hired by Texas A&M, and I was there for 9 years. And I had a tenured position, and it really was kind of too conservative for me there. And I decided to just take a year off and go back to Portland just to visit. And then after 1 year, I took another year off. And then after 2 years, I asked them, I said, could I have another year off? And they said, you know, Clay, even Henry Kissinger didn't get more than 2 years off of his academic post. They said, you have to decide. So I begged and pleaded for another half a year, and they said, well, okay. And then after 2.5 years of being away, I decided, well, I can't really go back to Texas because I love Portland so much. And I kind of just gradually drifted to teaching dance. And then I went to my first real tango, or Argentine tango, at a weekend workshop with Michael and Loren in Corvallis, Oregon State. And, man, that was such an experience, and it just turned me around to what dancing should really be about. And I can always remember Michael and Loren sort of demonstrating the way competition ballroom is danced, with kind of the wide-open embrace at the top and the cheesy smile on your face. I know I'm going to offend some people, ballroom dancers, but, you know, he said the thing that way ballroom is because you're dancing for a judge. He said, really, tango is about dancing for your partner. And although I'd been dancing all my life, it's the first time I ever heard somebody really say that, and I said, oh, I get it. That's what dancing should be about. It should be about your partner feel good. not just making your partner look good or not making you as a couple look good to other people. It's about making your partner feel good.
Do you, you've obviously been doing this a lot of years now. Do you find one form of tango dancing that you prefer over others, or what works best for you right now? Because
you mean the dance style?
Dance style, exactly. Because I correct me if I'm wrong. When you started, it was more ballroom style tango you were doing, right?
No, it was Argentine tango, but it was more kind of an open embrace show type tango.
Okay.
But I wouldn't call it ballroom.
Okay.
I don't, names mean different things to different people in different areas, but mostly we call the open embrace salon style and the close embrace milonguero style.
Right.
And I don't know if that holds everywhere, but the things that I was taught at first was more or less an open embrace style. And kind of going off what Robert Hawke said, I went to the Bay Area. I went to Stanford Tango Week and took a few of the classes that were going on. And then I went out dancing that evening.
Was that with Richard Powers or with Nora?
It was Richard Powers running it at that time.
Yeah.
But mostly what I'd learned was the so-called 8-count basic. And I went to a milonga that was fairly crowded somewhere in the Bay Area. And I thought, man, I don't know how to dance tango at all. Not even close. And so that kind of opened my eyes. And then gradually with Robert's help, I moved more into the milongueros or close embrace style.
Yeah, that's, for me, that's where it's at. And of course, when I started dancing, it was also the more open salon style, which I really enjoyed a lot. It was great learning the steps, but when I was shown this close embracing, that was it for me. It's like, oh, this is what I want to feel. Clay, we're going to take a quick break with a song. This one is called La Madrugada by Pedro Laurentz with the voice of Carlos Bermudez. And we'll be back with Clay Nelson. Stay tuned.
¿Dónde voy? No sé. Será la triste y lejana amargo que fue como una luz en mi sombra. Será su vieja ventana, será su voz que me nombra. Será el amigo vencido que ayer nomás me dio un abrazo llorando. Yo no sé qué ando buscando sin cesar en tu penumbre de allá. Será el amigo vencido que ayer nomás me dio un abrazo llorando. Yo no sé qué ando buscando sin cesar en tu penumbre de hallar.
And welcome back to Tango Angeles. We're speaking with Clay Nelson here tonight. And Clay, you're still here with us.
I am.
Excellent. One of the very strong impressions that I've gotten from speaking with all you guys from the community there is how well all of you have organized the community to the extent that everyone seems cooperative and not divisive. How do you make that happen? That's very difficult. How do you do that? How do you set the right tone in a growing community that doesn't get people to have all this infighting that you normally find?
Yeah. I think it was about 10 or 12 years ago. Susanna Miller was in Portland, and she got me to the side one time, and she asked me that same question, and I always, and I get asked that question a lot, and I really wish I had a better answer, because to some extent I think it's a little bit of mystery, a little bit of luck, a little bit of setting the right tone right from the beginning. As I mentioned, as Robert mentioned, he came back and he knew Close Embrace, and I said, great, teach him in my studio because I want to learn it too. And so I think it was setting a good example from the beginning of sharing and encouraging people to take lessons from as many different people as possible, and having just really good people. Also, I would have to say that, it seems like tango communities go through stages. And when they're small, very small, everybody gets along. Everybody's so excited to learn this dance and encouraging, and they work so much as a community. And then there's that sort of mid-level size where they really start having growing pains and division. Somebody new will move into the community, or somebody that's been taking lessons will decide on their own to teach on their own, or to bring or become an organizer, or have little parties and not invite everybody, or whatever. And then there starts becoming, egos get involved. I think there's two main things. Egos get involved, and sort of a sense of wanting to protect this dance, because obviously I know how to dance it, but nobody else knows how to teach it or dance it. I mean, people kind of have that attitude sometimes. And if you can get past that, then it gets bigger. And you're going to have small independent communities within the larger community, and you have to learn to accept that. You have to learn to accept that there is going to be different styles, and in fact encourage students to take from as many teachers. I've seen some teachers say, don't take from anybody but us for the first year or two because you'll get confused. And I always tell my students, yeah, you'll get confused, but take from as many people as you can, because you're going to learn something from everybody, and you're going to find the style that fits you the best. So it's just setting a good example and being lucky and having the right people involved in the beginning. I don't know. I'm never real comfortable that I can answer that question very well, but that's the best I can do.
Well, I think what comes across from you, Clay, as well as Alex and Paulie and Robert, that their egos are superseded by the greater interest in sharing this beautiful thing that we do, dancing tango and listening to the music and everything tango. And anyway, that just shows a lot of character, in my opinion, and not the small-mindedness of wanting to hoard the or lay claim to I'm the one that teaches the right thing, or no, you come learn from me, and getting greedy about it. I don't think tango it didn't start out that way. Tango embraced life, and as such, we need to share it with everybody the same way. But it doesn't mean that within that you can't, make a living out of it either. Nothing wrong with that. Anyway, I wanted you to tell us what I have been to Valentango myself. I just heard myself say that. I have been to Valentango. The festival was wonderful. Unfortunately, I was with a woman at the time who, I won't get into the details, but we ended up breaking up afterwards. The unfortunate part about that was that she never really understood how much I really cared about her. But having said that, tell us about what makes Valentango so special.
Well, it's really gone through two major stages. Well, I should even say more than that. In the beginning, we held our festivals in Portland. We're very fortunate in Portland to have a lot of old dance venues. And so I was always looking for new places. And when I started with the festivals, I would hold them in more than one location. So we'd kind of commute from venue to venue. And most of many of the venues were just a few blocks apart. And so we were very fortunate in having those places. And it gave people to have a real experience of what Portland was like. And then 4 years ago, I moved Valentine. It was getting so large and so cumbersome to try to move it to all these different venues that I moved it to the Doubletree Hotel, which a lot of people were resistant to the first year. And because once you get into a hotel, then you start feeling, well, this could be in any city. But I think we're really lucky to have it at the Doubletree because right across the street is Lloyd Center Mall, or what is it called? Shopping Mall, which is huge. And then there's tons of great restaurants in the area, easy parking. So once I moved it there and people got used to it, it continued to grow. And as far as I know, probably the largest festival in the country and the longest running. And so now I think what keeps it special is the fact that I think the teachers and the DJs and the staff are really into being friendly, not just performing, but into being friendly and helping each other and communicating with each other. So there's such a friendliness, plus the fact it's right around Valentine's Day. So
which is
kind
perfect.
Of tango and,
oh, perfect.
A romantic scene kind of go together.
Absolutely perfect. And tell us about your burning tango also.
Well, that's kind of a new thing. Totally opposite of Valentango, whereas Valentango is huge and it's in a city where there's already lots of dancers and is moderately priced. Burning Tango is in a little town called McLeod, which has a population of about 800. Nobody in the town dances tango. But there was a ballroom built there 100 years ago, 5,000 square foot ballroom, and it's still in use. And as soon as I saw it, I said, we just have to dance tango here because we'd be the first people that danced Argentine tango there. And so it's a very simple concept where during the day there's either a class going on or a milonga, but never two things at once. And you just buy one ticket. It's this year it's $76 for the whole thing. You have to pre-register and it will sell out. What a lot of people say they love about it is that everybody's meeting on kind of neutral territory. So everybody that goes there is from out of town, and they just get to dance with everybody else from out of town. There's really no locals there at all that dance tango. A lot of the locals just come in to watch.
And McLeod is really, really a beautiful place to hang out, too.
Have you been there?
I have. I've driven through there several times on my way up and down from Seattle, etc. And one time, shortly after I learned about what you're doing there, I thought, I've got to actually get off and see what McLeod is. And it was what a cute little town, really.
It's great.
Yeah, very, very cool, very laid back, and even during the day, there's a lot of activities you can do there. Right? There's biking and hiking and rivers and all that cool stuff for outdoor things for people to do, enjoy.
Yeah, and that time of year, it's the end of June, it's just beautiful there.
Indeed. I want to ask you about how you take care of gender imbalance among your participants. That sometimes is an issue at festivals.
Yeah, it certainly is an issue. And, the two festivals now, I'm only doing two, the Valentango and Burning Tango. And each one is handled totally separate in a different way. In Valentango, I do not try to gender balance. And one of the reasons is because only about roughly 25% of the people that participate in Valentango actually pre-register. So there's a lot of flexibility. People just kind of come and go as they want. I never know who's going to go to what milongas or what classes. And so gender balancing would be very difficult and put too much structure into it. So I know that there's going to be a problem there. So what I do is I have two mixers in the beginning, and they're, I think, kind of special. One I call the Mad Mobile Mixer, and it's just a way of getting people to meet over their cell phones. I have a unique way of doing that. And then we play other kinds of meeting-type games. And I have that one on Thursday, and then on the first day of the festival. And then on Friday, I have another mixer, which people really love. and I call that the two-song equal opportunity milonga. And in that one, each tanda is only 2 songs, which I know violates the tradition of tango. But the rule is that everybody gets to ask whoever they want to dance. Men ask women, good dancers ask inexperienced or inexperienced dancers ask good dancers. And then they have a little dance card, and after they get, I think it's 6 names or 8 names filled in from who they danced with, they put it in a box and have a drawing, and I give away a full pass to the festival for those that win. So I get a lot of attendance in that, and that way people get to meet one another. We also have changing partners in all the classes except for the advanced couples class. And then on my website, I have a place where people can, it's called the companion blog, and people can just write in their comments. So if they're interested in meeting somebody or working with somebody, it's a chance for them to meet and connect, plus a Facebook. So that's how I handle Valentango. But for this year, for Burning Tango, I require leads and follows to enroll or pre-register separately. And then I have a cap on how many leads and how many follows. And once that's reached, then there will be no more of that gender able to pre-register. So right now, of course, the follows are leading with number of pre-registrations. But it's about 40% sold out already. And so once the follows fill up, then we'll just wait until the leaders catch up, so it'll be balanced that way.
That's wonderful. What a great job you do. Well, that's a lot of work. Unbelievable what you do. Yeah. Tell us finally, do you have any funny personal anecdotes you want to share with our listeners? Well,
I guess I don't know if they're that funny, but one of the things that comes to my mind right off is that the very first festival I did, I was very inexperienced, and the grand ball was on Sunday night then. It was at the Crystal Ballroom. And when it came time for the performances, it suddenly dawned on me that I had not assigned anybody to be an MC and introduce the performers. And I'm not real big on public speaking. And so I said, well, I guess it's up to me. So I had to, suddenly, just on the spot, without any preparation or thought, get up and say a few words about the festival, introduce myself, and then introduce the dancers. And I guess I wasn't nervous because I didn't even have time to get nervous. And I thought, boy, when you do these festivals, you have to think all of it through, all of the details, and be prepared.
Well, you do a
so it was
wonderful
a great learning
job.
experience for
you
me.
do a great job. Great job. And thank you for bringing the magic of these festivals to us that so many people can come and enjoy. And I am highly recommending for anybody traveling out to the West Coast to go to the Valentango or even the Burning Tango. I haven't been there myself, but I look at the advertisement and I keep saying, I've got to go there, and you get busy and so many things to do all the time. Thank you so much, Clay, for joining us this evening. It's been such a pleasure having you and speaking with you, and you taking the time to be here with us.
Ronaldo, it's been my pleasure, actually, and I want to thank you for doing this show. Yeah,
you're very welcome. You guys are awesome up there in Portland, and just keep going. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you very, very much. We're going to play another song here after this great interview with Clay. This is Carlos Di Sarli with the voice of Roberto Rufino, recorded in 1941. The title is Patotero Sentimental. And I am Ronaldo. Stay tuned. We'll be back.
el bailongo, patotero, sentimental, esconde bajo tu risa muchas ganas de llorar. Ya los años se van pasando y en mi pecho no entra un querer. En mi vida tuve muchas miras, pero nunca una mujer. Cuando tomo 2 copas de más, de mi pecho comienza a surgir el recuerdo de aquella fiel mujer que me quiso de verdad y su ingrato abandoné. De su amor me burlé sin mirar que pudiera sentirlo después, sin pensar que los años al correr iban crueles a amargar a este rey del cabaret.
Welcome back to Tango Angeles. I'm reading a book called Aunt Julia in the scriptwriter and written by Vargas Llosa. It's about the behind-the-scenes madness that happens at this radio station in Peru. I feel like I've lived that here today, and I probably shouldn't read any more of that book. I think I've had enough for one session. But hey, such is the nature of live radio and what makes it infinitely interesting and exciting to do. Thank you very much for tuning in today, and thanks again to the Portland Tango community for participating here with us, to Alex Krebs again, and Paulie McBride, Robert Hawk, Clay Nelson. As Alex said, the Portland Tango community seems weirdly normal, so let's keep it that way. In fact, I came up with a new bumper sticker for them that should say, "Keep Weird Normal." Anyway, tango lovers out there, please check out the Portland for your tango bliss. This was our first destination tango, many more to come. Tonight's comparsita is brought to us by another of Portland's own, unique Joe Powers. He will be treating us to his comparsita. Our next show is on February 18th. It happens to be Mariano Mores' birthday. He's done so much, and we're going to be celebrating he'll be celebrating his 96th birthday. So please tune in again. We have a great show that we're lining up for February 18th. And again, thank you very much for joining us this evening. I am Ronaldo, and from Hollywood, California, good night.